Could DeAndre Hopkins be on his way to the Steel City? Right now, the Steelers are the betting favorite to land the former All-Pro receiver. Going to let you know what I think of that trade rumor later on today's show. And then also, Brooke Pryor of ESPN says Dan Moore Jr. is the most likely Steelers player to get traded before the deadline. And then also, I'm going to be letting you guys know the two redeeming qualities that I think Kenny Pickett has in his game and why I'm optimistic about his future moving forward as the Steelers quarterback. But before we get into all of the action today, make sure you click that subscribe button and join the fastest growing Steelers community here on YouTube here with Steelers Talk. We've added over 2,000 subscribers in just the last 2 weeks. Thank you to everybody that is subscribed. And every one new subscriber we put on today's video is going to equal 1 point for the Steelers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. So help the Steelers win this week. Click that subscribe button and join our family. Let's roll today's show. So let's kick off today's show with the DeAndre Hopkins rumors here, where the Steelers currently have the highest betting odds to land the former All-Pro receiver. And I definitely think this is an interesting situation because we haven't talked about DeAndre Hopkins really since the offseason, right? When he was still a free agent, when we were speculating whether or not the Steelers would consider bringing him in. And right now, the Steelers have the highest odds to go and get DeAndre Hopkins right now from the Tennessee Titans before Tuesday's NFL trade deadline, next Tuesday's I should say. They have 5-1 odds. That's the top. Cleveland is right there at second place with 6-1. Same thing with Seattle there. And then the Chargers and Jaguars are sitting at 7-1, tied for fourth place. So, you know, this really begs the question. Why would the Pittsburgh Steelers even be interested in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, right now, Deontay Johnson's back. You got George Pickens. You got Allen Robinson via trade here during the offseason. And you also have Calvin Austin III as a fourth wide receiver. So why would you really consider going out and getting DeAndre Hopkins, who, of course, signed with the Tennessee Titans this past offseason? And he's actually played pretty darn well. He's been a bright spot for the Titans in what's been arguably one of the worst offenses in the National Football League. There's just no other way to cut it, especially that passing game. Not very good right now, but DeAndre has 27 catches, 376 yards. Doesn't have a touchdown yet, but man, that passing offense really does stink. But, you know, what you really look at here is that Pro Football Focus grade. A 77.1 is good for 23rd in the National Football League. So he's still putting up number one type wide receiver numbers right now, even though he is getting a little bit older. And you take a look at what the Steelers have to work with in the wide receiver room right now and how they're grading out. George Pickens and Deontay Johnson are doing just fine, right? Deontay hasn't had enough reps so far this season to register in the rankings for Pro Football Focus, but so far so good at 77.4. We know how impactful George Pickens is. He's an absolute beast. But Allen Robinson, the guy you go out and get via trade this offseason, only sitting at a 55.6. That's good for 96 out of 114 wide receivers, and Calvin Austin III is doing all right. But if you can add DeAndre Hopkins to this potential group here, and you could put George Pickens and DeAndre Hopkins on either side on the outside, and then you put one of the best route runners in the National Football League and Deontay Johnson in the slot, that's going to be a really, really difficult grouping of wide receivers for opposing defenses to cover. And we know that Kenny Pickett has a really great connection with George Pickens. And, you know, my draft comp for George Pickens when he was coming out of Georgia was DeAndre Hopkins. They're pretty much the same size. They're both incredible catchers, contested catchers. They can contort their bodies, catch with one hand. They can do it all in terms of the contested catches stuff. Down the field, big bodies, big targets, big catch radiuses. And if you got two of those guys on the same offense, good luck stopping that, man. That would be absolutely incredible for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with the Steelers right now, they have just under $3 million left in available cap space for the 2023 season. So let's take a look at the contract details, because when you have that little cap space, the contract details really do matter in these situations. Now, DeAndre's base salary for 2023 is just over $1 million. So it's definitely doable for the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. The only kicker is that it's going to kick in at $14 million in 2024. That's going to be rough for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they end up making that trade. They're probably going to have to make some more cuts next offseason if they want to keep him on the roster. I mean, but you could also cut him technically. I mean, it would be $5.73 million next year in dead cap if you wanted to let him go, say he doesn't do very well here. But at the end of the day, I think that putting George Pickens and DeAndre Hopkins, they essentially play the same position. They're both true X receivers, so it'd be kind of weird to see two true X's on either side of an offense. Usually offenses like to have that big body receiver at the X, then somebody like a Deontay Johnson at the Z, kind of a smaller, more of a route running type of guy, and then they like somebody in the slot. But the Steelers might be willing to bend those rules a little bit if it means you can put George Pickens and DeAndre Hopkins on the field at the same time and still have Deontay Johnson in the slot. So this is what I think a trade would potentially look like for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You get DeAndre Hopkins here in the black and gold, and then you trade a 4th-round pick and Allen Robinson. Right now, Robinson and Hopkins' contracts are actually pretty similar, so you can pretty much switch the money around there, and that really helps out the Steelers' cap situation. And then the Titans get an additional 4th-round pick for their trouble here. They just got rid of Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles for a bag of peanuts, all right? I think this is something that could absolutely be done for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let me know what you guys think about this potential trade idea. Let me know down there in the comment section. If you're Omar Khan and the Titans offer you this trade package with DeAndre Hopkins going to the Steelers, are you accepting or declining? Type A for accept or D for decline. And this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now we go from a trade target to a trade candidate here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, where ESPN's Brooke Pryor, their Steelers reporter there at ESPN, has named Dan Moore Jr. as the most likely Steeler to get traded before Tuesday's deadline. And listen, I'm all for this. I would love it if the Pittsburgh Steelers traded Dan Moore Jr. He is not playing very well to this point in the season, and I want Broderick Jones to be starting at this point. I mean, last week he did play a little bit better, but overall, the Pro Football Focus grade stinks. 41.0. That's good for 71st out of 74 NFL offensive tackles. This is not cutting it, guys. I'm sorry. I know he played better against the Rams, but they have nobody at the edge rusher position, the Los Angeles Rams do. So I'm not impressed whatsoever by him not giving up a sack last week. I think that Broderick Jones is the future of the left tackle position. And, I really hope that the Steelers end up finding a sucker to take this guy. I'd take an extra 5th or 6th round pick for Dan Moore Jr. I'd take that in a heartbeat. However, personally, I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers doing this. They made a conscious choice last week and this week to start Dan Moore Jr. over Broderick Jones, and they clearly feel that Dan Moore is the better left tackle option for them moving forward, at least this season, than Broderick Jones. And if they didn't feel that way, they would have started Broderick. And I think if they would have started BJ last week, then yes, Dan Moore Jr. would have been a legitimate trade candidate going into the trade deadline. But because he's still starting and they're starting him over their 1st-round draft pick that they traded up for, I really don't think the Steelers are going to end up trading Dan Moore anywhere, unfortunately. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with the Dan Moore situation at this point. So now coming up, I got Kenny Pickett's 2 most redeeming qualities. I've been kind of a little bit critical of Kenny Pickett here over the last couple of days. I'm saying there's no way I'm trading 2 first-round draft picks to Patrick Surtain because you're not sure Kenny Pickett is the guy for the future. But I think there's 2 things in Kenny Pickett's game that really have me excited and optimistic for his future prospects of becoming this team's franchise quarterback moving forward. But before I get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Steelers125 to get a 125% deposit bonus today. Now, what that means is you put a deposit of $100 to $600 on the BetUS website. They're going to match that dollar figure 125%. Absolutely free of charge to use on your bet. So, for example, you put in $100 on the BetUS website. They're going to give you $125 additional dollars free of charge. That's a $225 value for a $100 investment. That is a good way to spend your money if you are a sports bettor. So if you want to take advantage of this right now, go chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Steelers125. So now the two most redeeming qualities for Kenny Pickett. Number one, he's a very good game manager that protects the football. And, when he's not doing that, when he's turning the ball over, this team loses. And then also, he has legitimate poise in the fourth quarter, and he's legitimately got that clutch gene that you look for in a quarterback that could potentially win Super Bowls down the road. Let's take a look right now at his career record without an interception. So in games where he doesn't have an interception, he has 9 of them so far in his career. He has won 8 of those football games. The only one where he didn't win was last year against the Cincinnati Bengals, and that was one of 2 performances for Matt Canada's offense in Canada's entire tenure as offensive coordinator where the team actually scored over 30 points. So Kenny Pickett, when he doesn't turn the football over, very, very good player. And this team, this shows that the Pittsburgh Steelers roster is good enough to win football games, and they don't really need Kenny Pickett to, sling the rock all over the park, right? They just need him to protect the football. The defense is good enough. The weapons around him are good enough to get victories if Kenny is protecting the football. And 9 games out of about 18 without an interception, that's pretty darn good in my opinion. And then as long as Kenny Pickett remains a steady game manager at this point, as long as he is protecting the football, the Steelers can absolutely win football games moving forward. I absolutely think that if Kenny Pickett continues to play this way, the last 2 games I should say, he hasn't had an interception. And lo and behold, the Steelers won. If he can continue to be a solid game manager moving forward for the Steelers, I don't think he needs to be a Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers for the Steelers to win football games. He just needs to be Kenny Pickett, and he needs to be a solid game manager. Then the other thing here when it comes to Kenny Pickett is that he's so much better in the fourth quarter than he is in the first 3 quarters. Here is his advanced stats in quarters 1, 2, and 3. And let me tell you, man, these numbers are abysmal. Dead last in catchable percentage, 29th in on-target percentage, so he's among the least accurate quarterbacks in the league in the first 3 quarters. His quarterback rating is 28th. Expected points added is 30th. And then he's dead last in points above replacement at a negative 14.3, which is absolutely terrible. But now look at his numbers in the fourth quarter, man, and he instantly turns into arguably a top 10 quarterback, 15th in catchable percentage, top 10 in on-target percentage, 5th, top 5 in quarterback rating in the fourth quarter so far this season, 3rd in expected points added, and then he's top 10 in points above replacement. So he turns into a completely different player in the fourth quarter, and we all know that these games, these close games, they're decided in the fourth quarter. This shows that Kenny Pickett is absolutely has that poise that you look for in a potential Super Bowl winning quarterback. You need your quarterback to perform in the fourth quarter, not shy away from the big moment, and Kenny's not one of those guys. That's one of the redeeming qualities that he has. Now, his play in the first 3 quarters definitely needs to improve. If he wants to win a Super Bowl for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward, the overall production does need to get better. He can't just play well in the fourth quarter and expect this team, to win football games and win championships that way. I know the defense is good. I know that the weapons around him are pretty decent as well. But if you want to be among a top 15, top 10 quarterback that's able to get teams to the Super Bowl and win it, you need to be able to produce not only in the fourth quarter, but in all 4 quarters if you want to be that type of guy. I think Kenny potentially has that ability. He hasn't shown the ability to do that yet, but he's definitely shown some good things here, and I'm excited to see if he's going to prove himself here by the end of the 2023 campaign. Now, predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will QB1, Kenny Pickett, win a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers during his career? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know what you guys are thinking about KP down there in the comments section. Now, before I go, I do have some final news items I do want to discuss with you guys relating first to an injury. Levi Wallace, cornerback, has really struggled so far this season dealing with a foot injury, and he's going to be questionable to play in Week 8, which certainly means that Joey Porter Jr. is going to get more playing time heading into the week. Defensive coordinator Tara Lawson has already said that JPJ has earned more playing time, and my initial reaction to that was, it's about damn time. This guy is a top 10 grading corner in the National Football League right now as a rookie, and he has to be playing because Patrick Peterson looks old and slow at this point, and Levi Wallace has not been up to snuff. Joey Porter Jr. right now is the best corner on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he needs to be getting those reps. And then we got Cam Hayward, who returned to practice on Thursday. Now, don't expect Cam in the lineup for at least a little bit now, but it's definitely great to see 97 back at practice here. Super excited for him to get back, as this Steelers defense is different when 97 is attacking quarterbacks from the middle. Then the last news item here today, Colin Cowherd of Fox Sports ranked the Steelers 6th in his power rankings this week, his herd hierarchy, and even he couldn't believe that he put the Steelers that high on his list this year. And Colin Cowherd is the type of guy, man, where he just can't make up his mind on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is what he had to say about the black and gold heading into Week 8. I can't believe I have the Steelers at 6. 54 straight games under 400 yards for the offense. But if you dig deep, here's what's fascinating. Kenny Pickett is good in the fourth quarter. 5 fourth-quarter comebacks, 6 game-winning drives in his last 18 starts. This team, they don't play well, or they didn't play well this weekend, and talking about the Rams game, they beat Baltimore. Pittsburgh's got an ability, and this is what good teams do. The scuff around for 2.5, 3 quarters, and win, sometimes on the road. Pittsburgh, I can't believe it, at 6. And my message to Colin here is you got to make up your freaking mind about the Pittsburgh Steelers. One week you're saying Mike Tomlin's an idiot for giving so much money to the defense and that they're too old school and they're too loyal to Matt Canada and this team is never going to go anywhere with Kenny Pickett as their quarterback, to now you're saying they're a top 6 team in the National Football League. Which one is it, man? Like, come on, dude. You just got to freaking make up your mind if you are Colin Cowherd here about the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it seems like every single week at this point he's changing his opinion on the black and gold. All right, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Really do appreciate all of your support. If you made it to the end of today's video, that means that you're a real one. So here's a little checklist for you guys to check off here before you click away. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. If you made it to the end of today's video, that means we must be doing something right, so we'd really appreciate it if you click that subscribe button. Make sure you like today's video to help the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoyed it and to push this out to other Steelers fans like yourselves. And then comment R1 for real one down there in the comment section to let me know that you made it to the end. Really do appreciate all of your support, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. And as always, here we go, Steelers.